Dominique Pellicot was arrested in 2020 after he was caught filming up the skirts of women in a local supermarket. Police seized phones, a laptop, and other devices from him. 2 months later, police show Giselle photos of her being sexually assaulted by men she has never seen inside her own home. When the police first showed you those images, what went through your mind?
When I see the first two photos that Lieutenant Perez shows me, I don't recognize myself. I think, who's this woman? I just see a rag doll, all contorted, completely passed out. And in a way, it's not me. And that's when they tell me that 53 individuals had come to rape me, that they haven't yet been arrested, just Mr. Pellicot, and that now there would be this long process of arrest of these men.
I just want to say something because right away people are saying she didn't believe her daughter, right? If I'm not mistaken. I looked it up and I read this whole article from The Guardian and I lost the section because I was literally scrolling to show you guys. But I did read that it again, I need you to understand the psychology of what's happening here. Her daughter came away with an understanding that her mother struggled to believe because they had not seen any evidence other than photos that something more had occurred because it would have felt devastating. Here's the section here. Darian is unsparing in her praise of her mother, with whom she appeared hand in hand in court, but wrote in her book and says today that as a wife and daughter, they are in a different place within the family and have dealt with the bombshell of Dominique Pellicot's abuse in a different way. She says not knowing if she was drugged or abused weighs heavily on the whole family. Apparently they don't know. And because they don't know, it's like, well, maybe it didn't happen, right? She said she's not able from an emotional standpoint, I think, to face the truth. I think it's difficult for her. And it's hard for me. It really is hard for me. I think you have to understand this woman just had the realization, the proof and the evidence of seeing videos of herself and strangers and this man she married. Now imagine as a mother, you have another layer of accepting that your husband not only did it to you, who he's not related to, but married, but his own daughter in which he helped create. So I think it's like another layer of difficulty, which is really difficult for all of us, right? Like all of us struggle with our own family. Like my parents still can't process that like their kids in any way experience any sexual abuse. Like it's too hard for them. Like when I say I was raped to my parents, they just go, no. They go, I don't know, Betsy, I don't know. Like they can't process the information because they feel like it was a failure on their end that they didn't protect their kids from the reality of the world. And now on top of this, this woman is seeing this video and all these things of her. And so I don't think she's abandoned her daughter from this article, at least, but I see that it is hard. And I see that it is so hard because the dad won't say whether he did it or not, according to this article. According to this article, which is a little dated now, I think it's like 2025 January, he hasn't said with his full chest. So now the daughter is, which is even scarier, like she doesn't know. She knows there's pictures of her. She knows he took photos. So it's like, it can be very scary, right? So I want to give a lot of, I don't like that we keep bringing this up because I keep hearing it everywhere. This woman has already been traumatized. We don't need to paint her as a villain when it was a misunderstanding because of the trauma she's experienced. I'm going to trust the mom and daughter to be on each other's side. It sounds like they are. If we hear something different, if the daughter comes out and says, my mom betrayed me, my mom sold me to my dad, we'll have that conversation. But I just think it does a lot of harm to keep spreading like that statement that the mother didn't believe the daughter, because that doesn't seem to be true. The mom's just said, like, basically, I hoped. And then the court from the dad, Dominique, right? Or the trial never fully uncovered why Dominique Pellicot did what he did. If there even is a reason, he told the court, you aren't born a pervert, you become one, citing his own abuse as a child. He said he had been raped at age 9 by a nurse in hospital when he was being treated for a head injury. Age 14, as an apprentice on a building site, he said he witnessed and was forced to take part in a group rape of a woman whom he described as disabled. It was too heavy to bear, he told the court. To me, it was pure manipulation, Darian says. He was choosing his words to make us empathize with him. He knows exactly how it works, where to press the button. In a high-ceilinged courtroom where Dominique Pellicot sat on one side in a glass-fronted dock and Giselle on the other, Darian felt there had been an invisible arc between my mom and dad all through the trial, in which he was trying to communicate with his ex-wife to let himself off the hook of responsibility in life. You decide who you want to be, Darian says, brushing aside any excuses about childhood. This echoes her mother's view expressed in court that regardless of their past as a person, or regardless of their past, a person chooses who they become. Okay, so there you go. There's that I found that I thought would be interesting. Okay, now let's go ahead.
And for me,
let's go back to the interview.
I'm falling down into hell because now I have to go tell this to my kids.
In 2024, Giselle and her family endured the trial of Dominique Pellicot for months, where he admitted to drugging Giselle, raping her, and recruiting dozens of men online over the course of a decade to do the same. Inviting them into the couple's home to abuse Giselle while she was unconscious. He and 50 co-defendants were found guilty of their crimes. Dominique Pellicot was sentenced to 20 years in prison. You make an effort in your book to share the...
And this is why I make videos, and I know it sounds like I'm just harping, but I'm not, and that's your misogyny. You could be dating a guy who would end up in the Epstein files. All these men would have been there if they were given the opportunity. That's what I'm saying. You don't have to go to the island to have been somebody who would have done it if given the opportunity. These are regular men in your regular life answering an ad from a guy who says, do you want to come over and rape my unconscious wife? And they're like, yeah, cool, definitely. And I'm like, that's what I'm saying, girls. Be very careful about moving in with your boyfriends. Be very careful about moving in with people you're still trying to figure out if you really like, because you just don't know. You don't know. And I'm not saying you won't be in a very rare circumstance in which you are like her, you trust, you think everything is great, and then you find out. Keep in mind, and I mean this with so much respect and love, there are cases like this where you just have no fucking clue. But many of us, myself included, are in a different category. So just if you're in this category, the signs that this is not your person and this isn't a healthy relationship, they started before you moved in together or started really quickly. You weren't 20 years into a great relationship and then you found out. That is a very rare case, though it happens. For a lot of us, it's clear. It's like if we go back and look at our life, we're like, it was so obvious. In cases like this, there is no obvious. That's why it's so unique. That's why it's so horrifying, because both are bad. But imagine imagine there was nothing. Imagine there was genuinely like just so much surprise, right? So just know which category you're in. And that's why I say, if you can, right? Like, try not to move in with a person you're still trying to figure out. Okay? Because you just don't know who they are yet. And it's just so unsafe. And it's hard to move them out of your apartment. And it's hard to break a lease. And domestic abuse goes way up when you're living in the same house as somebody, right? Just as a way to protect yourself, because you deserve it. Lashes, thank you so much for the super chat, says, what creates men like Giselle's husband? Genuinely, here is my theory. I think human beings are born typically into homes with parents that are not actually aware of the responsibility of raising a child, and they are neglected. And I think that neglect, when paired with the fact that we're animals on a planet, and then paired with the reality that people have biological urges and or bad loose morals, they will end up going down a path that feels like a train they can't get off of. Okay? I mean, we live in a world where people make statements like, I'll never forgive you if you voted a certain way. I'll never forgive you if you liked this band. I'll never forgive you if like you believed this news story. So then that sets into the mind of a person, I'm already here. I'm never going to be forgiven. I might as well continue. And so you have to say, not only can you be forgiven, but you can find your place in society, even if that place is a facility, right? It's not about us forgiving you for what you did to us. It's about letting go of the fact that we had control over it. You made your choices. You have to contend with the consequences. But if we can prevent this in other people, we should. If he says genuinely, I think it was because I was raped as a kid, we should probably prevent rape in our kids. Not because it's immoral or unethical, but because children who are assaulted have a higher probability of not becoming assaulters themselves, just depression, suicide, self-harm, bad relationships, maintaining work is difficult, and they deserve to have a better life. It's not that you rape, you will be a rapist. It's that if you are raped, you're probably going to have consequences from that. That certainly is a part of why it's so bad for people, right? So again, when we have conversations, we have to say, I need to hold you accountable as an adult, and I recognize that this is preventable in children. Because again, it might be too late for your 45-year-old brother, but it's not too late for that nephew that's 4 years old. And I need you to focus on that 4-year-old nephew, because this is why boys keep saying porn is a problem, because they are being raised in a bubble in which they are not supposed to be educated. They're not supposed to meditate. They're not supposed to know themselves. And they are watching porn and using it in the worst way possible, and then not seeing it as what it is, a business. And then they think it's their whole personality. They think that's how real sex happens. There are so many problems in the world. And I'm telling you, it's stemming from our lack of understanding about what it means to be a person. We are so eager to bring babies into the universe with no understanding of how to treat or raise them. We are flawed human beings. And so I'm saying, we have to be very careful about what our role is, in the community. For some people, it's too late for them. It is. That's reality. Okay? For other people, it's about preventative care. Now, for the people it's too late for, it doesn't mean those people aren't real human beings and they don't deserve, stability and love and a lack of hurt. I think they just need to be handled differently. They need to be treated differently, but not cruelly. The idea is not to become cruel ourselves because it's too late for people, right? Is to accept that it's too late for this person, but this person still needs to be treated with dignity, whether they treated others with dignity or not. We are too revenge focused. We're too violence focused. We're too arrogant. We're not doing the work needed. So I don't know what created him specifically as an individual, but I have a feeling that the statistical probability of you turning out to be like him would go way down if people were raised by better people, raised in better societies, and if the media they consumed was better explained to them, if they were given, opportunities to learn right from wrong, which is why, again, okay, if it's so hard for the person who's advocating for the most right to be good, then how much harder is it for the person advocating for the most bad to even be good? And that's the point. Too many people, billions of people around the planet, period, more people than not, are in a bad position philosophically. They are in a bad place. I'm not about to give up on humanity, but I'm also not about to turn my head and ignore their bad deeds either. And I'm just going to say, we need to move people in a direction of preventing that harm. Okay, breaking generational curses, going to therapy. This man needed therapy. Going back to yesterday's conversation, why do you always tell people to go to therapy? This man needed therapy. This child who was raped needed therapy, deserved therapy. This child was raped twice, put in a position to engage in a gang rape, and at no point was there intervention. At no point did this child get the care that they needed, probably because he's old as fuck and they didn't even think to give him that care, and probably because the patriarchy would have been told this is what a real man does. This is why I say go to therapy, because this child he deserved somebody, some adult in his life to sit there and say, I care about you, I'm going to get you therapy, but nobody did, which brings me to this clip from the Sister Survivors, Moment of Solidarity. These are the groups of women that suffered at the hands. Remember all the Olympian girls? Do you remember all the girls? Nesser or whatever his name is, the doctor? Listen to this. Listen to this part of the speech. Listen to this.
For too long, we were ignored, and you helped us rediscover the power we each possess. You may never meet the hundreds of children you saved, but know they exist. The ripple effect of our actions or inactions can be enormous, spanning generations. Perhaps the greatest tragedy of this nightmare is that it could have been avoided. Predators thrive in silence. It is all too common for people to choose to not get involved. Whether you act or do nothing, you are shaping the world that we live in, impacting others. All we needed was one adult to have the integrity to stand between us and Larry Nassar. If just one adult had listened, believed, and acted, the people standing before you on this stage would have never met him.
We don't believe children when they come forward. Kids listen to adults around them. I did. I went to therapy and I listened to the way my parents talked about gay people. And I internalized that because I knew I was gay. And that led me down a path of self-harm and suicidal ideations since I was 8 years old. Now imagine you're a young boy and you're listening to all the adults around you. You're a young girl, you're a young they, them, and we're all listening to the people around us. We're consuming it. We're really listening. And then imagine like how much strength and power you have to impact your kids. Like the adults around us are not doing their due diligence to harm or reduce for the sake of children. We do not care about kids. We do not advocate for them. We do not believe them when they speak up. Okay? I'd like to believe that if people if we take the right preventative measures, we can save and help so many people. But if you've given up, if you feel like, what's the point? It's also a part of that process, right? Like giving up and not having hope, that's the result of abuse. That's the result of trauma. And that's why I'm saying it's so hard to be a good person. It's so hard to heal from it because look at the world around us. So to answer that super chat, like what makes a man like him? Society, the world, us, biology, environments, evolution. Yes, all of it. All of it. None of us are exempt from how the world shows up. We're all a part of it.
The difficulties of Dominique's upbringing, his troubled childhood and family life, which included abuse, it would have been easy for you, Giselle, to cast him off. But why did you feel people needed to understand this part of the story, where he came from?
Because I think that during the trial, Mr. Pellico was seen as a monster. They nicknamed him the Wolf of Mazan. I believe he remains a human being who committed monstrous acts. I wanted to explain the story of our life, because he had been a sweet, kind man, shy, a good father, a good grandfather. Everyone loved him. He was always ready to help others. I wanted to show that balance. You can't spend 50 years of your life with a violent man. Obviously, when I found out what he had done to me, it was like a bomb exploded in my life. But I wanted to establish that he hadn't been some monster his whole life.
And that's the point. Everyone thinks that's why my parents really struggle to believe the victims and the families, because the predators in the family, they're not monsters. They're humans. They're people they have good memories with. And I'm saying I also have these good memories with these people. I'm saying regardless of those good memories, they are responsible. And I would like some accountability. And they're saying, yeah, but like, are you sure it was that big of a deal? Are you sure it wasn't blown out of, are you sure you didn't do something? Are you sure XYZ? And it's like, people really struggle to hold two truths at once. You can hold people accountable and love them. You can love a predator and see their humanity. You still have to do, so that's why it's up to the predator to own themselves. They're not. See how they're not doing it? We see that with a lot of YouTubers who get caught, is they downplay it. I'm going to sneeze. That's why I'm touching my face. Ugh. They're going to downplay it. They're going to say you're being, dramatic. You're over exaggerating. Like, look at all the good they do. Look at all the money they donate. Look at all the way they show up. Look at all the work they've done politically. Like, oh my God, like, what are you talking about? Like, that's their personal life. That's their dating life. Like, that has nothing to do with anything. And I'm saying the world is a reflection of us as a whole. Everything wrong with the world could probably be found in your family dynamics. They could be probably found in your work dynamics, your school dynamics. They're not that different. There's nothing interesting about billionaires or elites. There's something unique from them than you. They're the same people. They just have money and status. You would do it too if you had the opportunities, and that's the point. The point is you don't actually know why you shouldn't do something. Because given the opportunity, this is why I highlighted in my podcast in Australia, they did some studies that if men were given the chance to do something with a child and they thought nobody would find out, only the ones who admitted it said they would try something. It was like 1 in 10, 1 in 24, 1 in 8, depending on what the question was. It was a high probability. And that's what I'm saying. I'm saying that regardless of how much you think that this person has to be a monster and that's how you know they're a predator, they're probably just a regular person living a regular life.
What made this trial all the more remarkable was a profound decision Giselle herself made. She had refused to remain in the shadows, waived her right to anonymity, and showed up day in and day out.
Que la honte, c'était toujours nous les victimes, c'est nous qui portons.
It's always the victims that carry shame, not the accused. And I feel that's salt on the wound that we imposed on ourselves.
That's very true, isn't it? Because they make you feel bad. What did you do? What were you wearing? Who were you with? What did I tell you? Didn't I warn you? Didn't I tell you? Okay. Yeah, because that's the reinforcement we get from society. That's the first question. Didn't I warn you? Didn't I tell you? That's the first statement my family says when someone comes forward. What did you do? Didn't we tell you? Didn't we warn you?
And that fighting this individually, to refuse to feel shame, I was...
And listen to that. Didn't I warn you? And also, this person's still invited to the get-together, and if you make a stink out of it, you're trying to tear up the family. Didn't I warn you not to put yourself in this position? Also, let's have them over for Dolma. How can you warn me? And not me, Brittany, like it's not only my story. I'm trying not to, talk too much about people's stories, but they'll say, I warned you about this situation. And then it happened, and they're like, well, I guess it's your fault because I warned you. Like, that's the thing. And instead of just telling the predator to get out, they go, the predator gets to stay, you can leave. I mean, you're both invited, but I'm not going to disinvite the predator. Because they really believe, and this is a part of the Christianity part of it, they really think, especially women and girls, have all of the power and all of the strength, and they are the ones who control men, and men are controlled by women. And if women put themselves, little girls, minors, like 5, 6 years old, put themselves in a situation where they are tempting or the boy has been exposed to porn, the most accountable person is the girls every time in my family. I mean, we're talking about kids 5, 6, 7 years old. We're talking about kids 14 years old. We're talking about girls 17 years old. It doesn't matter. They're always the ones questioned. Well, the boys are always given all of the empathy, sympathy, and all of the, it's not their fault. It's porn. It's society. It's the girls. Exactly, chat. I've had people warn me about their family members being weird. So you know that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Chat said, Lashes, super chat says, thank you, girl, says, is once a predator, always a predator? It depends on the kind of predator, but generally speaking, I do think recovery from that positioning is very, very difficult, which is why it's very hard to own up to it, because in order to own up to it, they would basically have to start their life over and never get the life that was promised to them. But it depends on what we mean by predator. And it depends on what kind. But generally speaking, like if they're like a serial rapist, like the only way to come back from that is to, like I said, you'd have to isolate, you have to go away, you have to make sure you weren't around people or weren't going to do it again. You would maybe institutionalize yourself. You would give up let's say your celebrity, you would give up your status. Maybe you'd have family who let you live somewhere away from people. Like society should do something, but also you need to acknowledge that like you're a danger to people. You have to first accept like, oh my God, I'm a danger to people. Because like, look at all this, like, look at Charlemagne the God bragging about raping his wife. And he's got a little cushy spot on the internet. You know what I'm saying? This man literally is like, oh yeah, I guess I raped her. And I'm like, you know what I mean? And I think that's what most men are like. Most men are Charlemagne. They go, I wanted that, body. I wanted that pussy. So she was drunk one night and I went for it. She wouldn't give it to me sober. So I'm going to go for it while she's drunk. And then they marry her, and then she feels like, well, at least he married me, which is also traditional, right? Marry your predators. How traditional is that, right? Marry your rapist. Very traditional. Very traditional. Yeah. Chad says, do you think kids should be blocked from viewing porn, or should we have more convos about porn isn't real? AKA, first of all, You can't watch porn unless you're 18, right? Like, porn is not for children. Porn is for 18 and older. You shouldn't even be looking at porn. It's not for you. They didn't make it for you. Obviously, kids will find porn, but kids should be banned from, that's the whole point. Porn is not for kids, just like drugs are not for kids, right? I don't know in what world we're living in where we're like excited kids are finding porn. Of course, I found porn at a young age, but I certainly understood that I was breaking the rules, and that's a big part of it. Obviously, porn should not be made for kids, okay? I'm not saying kids won't find it, just like drugs. I'm saying it's not for you. So if you're going to do something that's not for your age group, you need to understand it's not for you, okay? So, like, again, when we have this conversation, it's a weird way to say, like, should kids watch porn? Porn isn't for kids. Should kids do drugs? No, BDSM isn't for kids either. You know, you shouldn't be doing BDSM unless you're 18. If you were practicing BDSM with your 15-year-old boyfriend and he's your dom, girls, that's not BDSM. You guys are playing, your children playing dress up. You're like LARPing. And I know everyone's LARPing at the end, but you're not supposed to do that. It's a safety reason. That's why when kids do it, they're acting as children. When adults support them doing it, they're acting irresponsibly. Adults should not be encouraging kids to do drugs, porn, or BDSM. I know kids will find a way to do it, but we shouldn't be encouraging them to do it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not good for you. I understand you will find it so we can talk about it. I understand you will do it so we can talk about it. But I don't want to encourage you to do it because I think you deserve to have your relationship with these things to be healthy and better and good. But I want you to do drugs. I want you to have fun. I just want you to do it safely. You know? Chad said, should it be harder for children to find adult content? I think it should be harder for people to have babies. Just kidding. Just kidding. No government intervention. I think until the adults having the children get it together, it doesn't matter. Okay? I think until you start fucking owning up to the fact that you're bringing a baby into the universe, it doesn't matter. Okay? Because then I think we should focus on parents being better parents. Exactly. Chad says, is watching porn bad in general for adults? No. I don't think porn in general, I don't think watching porn in general is bad. I do think the systems that create porn are bad. I think porn industries are evil. I think sex work is evil if run by men. I think sex work run by men who aren't deconstructed is always dangerous for both the client, the worker, everybody. I think sex work under capitalism is inherently evil. I think women and femmes and they, thems and boys and girls, everybody has the right to be naked and record themselves naked having sex and posting it and making money off of it. But I think anybody who starts a business or owns a business that requires other people to be naked and vulnerable is inherently evil. And I think that there's something there, you know? Yeah, I think there's something there.
Doing it for all of us. I had to do this for all the women that couldn't do it. I also had a certain maturity. I might not have done it at 20 or 30. Today I'm 73. I was 70 at the time of the trial. So I took the dive. There were also all these other victims that hadn't been recognized. And that was important to me, that I didn't feel alone. Every day they were here, in the room, in public spaces, or in the court spaces reserved for the public. And I was happy to offer them my story as an example, and my name as a flag. I was proud of that.
Love her hair color. I want that hair color.
She's proud to have her name serve as a battle flag, but this case was more than symbolic. It was a catalyst for change. Before the Pellicot trial, French law did not require consent to be given before sex. Now it does. Sexual acts done to another without consent constitute rape. And it reignited global conversations about ingrained attitudes, gender violence, and coercive control.
There needs to be a collective acknowledgement that this society, I believe, cultivates denial. And it's important that we evolve. There's a new law on the definition of consent, which we cannot deny is progress, but I think it's a small step in the long journey we're on. So we really have to mobilize for this to stop.
inspired a nation.
Oh, that looks like Croatia. Croatia looks very similar to this. You know, like little cute place. I love that France listened. I love that she had so much representation. I love that people took her case so seriously. How beautiful is that? Like, what a testament to how different countries are reacting to assault and rape. It's not perfect, but I do appreciate the amount of attention this story has gotten and how serious people took it.
Faire pleurer.
Oh. Yeah, I really appreciate that message at the end. I think it's so important, right? To allow there to be hope. Because I think not only is it real and we deserve it, but I think it's a part of the change that I think optimism is required for change to occur. I think it's a requirement. It's hard to embody it though until you're ready. So I get if you're in your negative Nancy stage, I really get it. But, you know, I appreciate her willingness to even look at another person because I'm shocked because girl, I get it. I would understand if she never dated again. You know, wow, I'm really shocked at that a little bit, but wow. I think that's beautiful. I think she looks really happy after all of that, you know. I think also, I don't mean to say it this way, and I really don't mean it this way. She is having a different experience than somebody who's living with all the memories. Because remember, she doesn't have memories of anything that happened. And I know because I have people in my life, a lot of women I know who've been sexually assaulted, some of them don't have any memories. They just know it happened. And so they, as an example, don't have PTSD. They didn't get diagnosed with anything like that, but they're still horrified and have like relationship issues. They have to go to a lot of therapy. And so she is having a unique experience where this really horrific thing happened to her over years, but she has no memory of it. So she's going to have a different relationship to what it means to engage or fall in love. And her story is just going to be a little bit different, right? So it's still horrifying. It's definitely not better. But just to put it into perspective for some of us who might think like, how can you date again? Well, maybe a big part of it is because for some of us, we're recalling our time, our situations, and we're like, that flashback is really scary, but she doesn't have flashbacks. She has the flashback of finding out, but maybe not the memory of the situation. So maybe she's having a different experience where it just gives her a different relationship too. So don't beat yourself up if you're like, oh, my situation was different. Like everyone's different. What she went through was horrifying. It is not any less horrifying than anybody else's situation. It just means that we all get to have our own relationship too. How many of these things, like what these things, how they happen to us, right? And it must be very scary not to remember. It must be terrifying not to remember. Right? Everybody is different. Okay? Everyone is different. Everyone's going to have a different diagnosis after. Everyone deserves to have their own relationship to it. Okay, so don't compare, is what I'm trying to say. Don't compare. Okay. I'm so glad she shared her story. I think it's so important. With that said, I do want to go to Channel 4 did this story. Hopefully, we don't get copyrighted on why ordinary men commit violence against women. And I think this plays into even what she said, which is like her husband seemed ordinary, like a regular guy. He didn't seem like a monster, but here we are, right? So let's go ahead and get into that. But before we do, look at this TikTok because I think it's a good, same topic, but almost like a cleanser. And also, like, just look at this TikTok. Look at this TikTok. My boyfriend finding out 200,000 women go missing a year. You're watching a news story.
That's like 29/11s every year.
Yeah. Welcome to being a woman.
He said 29 9/11s every year. Damn. Yeah.